Welcome back to the R-Rated Podcast. The R-Rated Podcast. This week's guest is...
Welcome back to the R-Rated Podcast. Today's guest is Montgomery Morrow, and he's a actor, writer, director, producer, and co-founder of No Tomorrow Productions, which comes from your last name, and I just literally put that together like right before we started recording, which I think is really unique and fun. I want to definitely talk about that. But first, where are you from?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I really
Thanks for
appreciate
coming
it.
on.
This is cool. I'm from New York. I'm from Westchester. I'm about
Cool.
an hour north of New York City.
Awesome. Okay, so New York's a fun big city, but so is LA. So why did you choose LA?
Well, New York, I was out there for a while.
Okay.
You know, I graduated college. I went back to New York, spent a lot of time in Brooklyn.
Born and raised in New York.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I got out of town for college. I went to college in Charleston, South Carolina. Shout out.
Nice.
But I spent a lot of time in Brooklyn, doing my thing in New York, acting. That's where I started the production company.
Okay.
But then Jessica, my partner, and I,
Who was also on the podcast, episode 97. Check it out.
We have been talking about LA for a while, and she had a couple short films out here, and we decided to take the plunge.
Wow. Okay. So how long ago did you start your production company? Was that like one of the first things you started off with, or did you start off with acting? Because you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah. So acting was always the thing. That's what started me into this business. You know, like my brother would make fun of me because I used to walk around wearing like a blazer and my dad's cowboy boots, like humming the Terminator like soundtrack.
Yeah, I was like, what outfit is that?
I don't know. I just found stuff and put it together. So acting was always a thing, middle school, high school, college, all that. And then I worked on a indie feature film called Hard Sell.
Ooh, okay.
Check it out. It's available.
Nice.
Sean Nolboff directed it. Really good friend.
This is after high school?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Like a couple years after.
Couple years after. Okay.
And so talking to Sean, he was about 25 making the film, and we had become friendly and we're hanging out one day, and I said, you know, this is where I want to be. You wrote, directed this thing. And how did you get here? And he kind of turned to me and just said, don't wait for anyone to give you an opportunity. You got to make one yourself.
Wow. Love that. That's 100% accurate.
Yeah. So he really inspired me to start the production company and just start making stuff, make roles for myself.
Wow.
I got
like
the bug
that.
from
So
there.
instead of like, are you still going to auditions at this time, or are you like, you know what, I'm just going to make roles for myself? Like you literally said it. So you're just doing both?
Yeah. So I kind of got not stuck behind the camera, but I was behind the camera for a while.
Right.
And now moving to LA, I said I'm going to get representation, and I did that last year. So this year I've been auditioning a bunch and kind of getting back into that actor 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Well, not 9 to 5. It's 20, it's
More
24/7.
Yeah, more like 16 hours. 12-hour days.
But just auditioning and kind of getting back in the groove of that, because it is a different beast being in your house shooting against a wall with some lights versus being on set, having
100%.
prepared the role for weeks or whatever.
Yeah, and having whole production stereo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
what was the initial thing that sparked your acting into, like, what film was it, or what, do you remember what moment that was for you?
that's a really good question. I think having two older brothers who Mackenzie, who's the middle brother and has...
I love the names. Shout out your parents. Great names. Great
Shout
names.
out to Gloria and Jean.
Yeah, shout out Gloria. I love it. Okay, wait. Mackenzie's your older brother?
So I'll go down the list. So
Okay.
it's Michaela, Maximilian, Mackenzie, Montgomery.
Love the M names.
So
yes.
it's solid there.
Okay. Creative.
So Mackenzie, who I started the production company with, but having two older brothers, they would show me movies when I was a kid that I had should not have been watching, pretty much.
Love that.
So it's funny. I think The Shining really got me to want to be. That's the one.
I want to be the kid on the tricycle.
No, I want to be Jack Nicholson.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. That's
Wendy,
cool.
give me the bat.
Yeah, I like that. Very cool.
So
I read the book, actually.
And then I think I'm sure there's other movies before that, but really that one feels the foundation of this. I feel like.
Would you still like that kind of genre to act in yourself, like the thriller, the psychological stuff, the more like maybe dark stuff, not dark, but like a little bit deeper than like, ha, like laugh at my pain.
Yeah, I really like darker
Yeah.
characters. And I think, that must be why I think I'm attracted to that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just the complicated nature of who they are. And as an actor, you have to, you can't judge your character. You really got to
Yes.
like understand why they think this way. And
Right.
that for me is so interesting because I don't feel like I'm that in real life. So I'm really, putting on someone else's pants. you know?
Right. So what was the first thing that you ever wrote and directed yourself?
Great question. So I was at College of Charleston, shout out again.
Okay.
And there's a center stage. It's a student run black box theater.
Yeah.
And I got inspired by actually a friend of mine's short story that he told me about.
Oh, okay.
And so I was getting inspired by it, and I asked him, do you mind if I write a play based off
Oh.
it? And he was like, no, sure, do it.
Is this your first time writing a play?
Yes. I mean,
Wow.
I had written little shorts and things and played around, but this was a first full-length play.
How different is a play from like a screenplay? Like a short film or a feature film? Because like I've never like written a play, but I've written short films and feature films. So I'm like, how different is the setup?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a like foundational standpoint, in a film you're trying to show, and in a play you have to tell.
Oh, right.
There's plenty of
Yes.
play. Like in a film, you don't want people talking about someone who isn't there,
Right.
talking about a conflict that's not right
Right.
in front of you. Whereas in a play, there's plays that talk about people that aren't there for like 2
Yeah.
hours. So, and people are telling their backstory and how they
Right.
feel, and
Right.
so it's the story told through the voice.
I like that.
Whereas a film, it's like, show me the visuals, try and say as little as possible.
Right.
Let the actors do it with
Right.
their subtext and
Totally.
So
Totally.
that would be like the foundational difference for me,
Okay.
I think.
That's an excellent point. Okay, so you were like, I'm gonna write a play.
Yes. So
Casual.
yeah, so it probably took me like a year to write, and I went abroad to Florence, and I was there for like
Italy,
4
okay.
months. So I was like chipping away at that. I'd be like in class, like listening to someone talk, and I'd be like, "Ooh, I just got an idea," and I'd write it down. So I think I really fleshed it out there, and then I came back. It was my senior year, and I ironed it out. I finished it and pitched it. So I got approved.
Wow.
I did the show.
Yeah. Was it performed at school or like a community theater?
Yeah, I had like I think it was like a weekend or 2 weekends put it
Wow.
on. We had
What a great feeling.
2 months of rehearsal or something like that. I cast a lot of my friends.
So you were able to actually direct it yourself to like, even though it was your first play that you directed, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's where I'm really grateful for
Yeah.
College of Charleston.
No, yeah.
Because they allowed us to do that. And we got to run this theater. I mean, there was like a, professor liaison or whatever, but it was really ours. And so I really got the bug.
What
directing
challenges did you face directing a play?
I mean, that's a good question. You got to build the set, you
Yeah.
really have to visualize everything.
Right.
And I think coming from a play background and
Okay.
theater background, I actually visualize film very similarly.
Yeah. Do you
Like-
see it in your head? Like you see it like.
Yes, but also I see more like wider shots and blocking more is something that I think about a lot
Right.
because I learned that from theater. I'm going to turn my body or I'm going to stand here.
Right.
And they're going to sit down. And I
Right.
think a lot of film directors know that too.
Right.
But you watch films and it's shot with a long lens and it's a over the shoulder close up.
Right.
Whereas I'm like, let's shoot a little wider and
Right.
see them move around each other.
I like that.
And I think you see that in older filmmaking.
Yeah, you do.
I love watching older movies for that reason.
Wow. Okay. And then so after you directed your play, like where were you at now? Like mentally, were you like, I want to keep doing plays, or were you like, that was cool, but I want to try like more film stuff?
I think I always knew I wanted to do film.
Okay.
And I said I want to go to a theater school because theater is the thing that where acting began. You
And
know
I
what
mean,
I'm
you're
saying?
from New
Like-
York. Broadway's huge.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
I mean, I
totally.
don't think I ever had Broadway on my mind, to be
Okay.
completely honest, but I just was like, I think I want to go to where acting feels like it started, which is theater, and I'd
Right.
always been doing that. And I think I graduated being like, I probably could have gone to film school, but it doesn't matter.
YouTube
It's my
University,
journey.
honestly, you don't
Yeah.
really need to go to film school. I've had a lot of different guests on, and I think we established like you don't really need to go to film school.
Yeah, which I definitely learned that like creating my own production company and
Yes.
making stuff.
So how did you create your own production company? For, there's a lot of people listening that are in that same boat that are like, I want to start a production company. I don't know where to start. How do I start that? How do you start something like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously the legal side to it.
Right.
There's obviously the more easy side. I mean, legal, there's like websites and stuff that you can go on that pay whatever it is and get your LLC created and get the name and stuff. But I think now, because of social media and Instagram and all that, you can create a page just with the name, get a website, and then just YouTube, so it's like you can kind of establish the name and your production company without actually doing all the legal stuff to do all of that.
Wow. And what was your main intention to starting a production company? Like, what was your goal behind it? Like, why did you want to do that?
I mean, I think it was really to not wait for any parts, to make my own.
Yeah.
And I wrote a feature film with a friend, and we shot it for like $10,000, like
nice.
Kickstarter, raised the money.
Hell yeah.
And it was our first thing, so we watched it and we were kind of like, oh, this like isn't that good, So we cut it down. It became like a short film.
Okay.
And learned a lot from that experience. Actually, it took me a while to finally like finish editing it and put it out, because I was like, we raised all this money, which like $10,000 now it's a lot of money.
When it's your first time, you're like, oh my God, $10,000. No, I felt the same thing. I was like, that's
all my friends and family are gonna hate me now. And so that was fine. But yeah, I think to answer your question, was really just to act. Yeah. But I think doing everything and realizing like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at producing, and I can really like see things visually as a director, helped me being on either side of the camera. Right. And yeah, so
I was gonna say, how did the producing come into play? Was it because you were essentially producing your own films, and you kind of learn it when you that's how you learn, honestly. You just kind of do it yourself. Is that how it kind of came to be? Or?
Yeah, I think like the education that I got in theater was one of like a very knowing every aspect. Like I took a makeup class, I took a costuming class, I took a lighting class.
Hell yeah.
So one of my like big things that I want to do on a film set is know how every department needs to work. Yeah. And that helps me as a producer. So I think people respect that, because when I say how much time is it going to take, I respect them, because I know, it's not just grabbing something and putting, which
is a huge thing to know, because not a lot of people know that, and time always gets taken away on set. You start off with like, you have an hour, and then next thing you know, you have 20 minutes. Right. So judging that and knowing that is huge for a producer, and having that communication too. So that's awesome. Is there anything that you're like, oh, I really wasn't expecting that with producing?
I mean, like on a budget wise, like equipment always costs a ton, locations, feeding people,
feeding the food, yes.
And also one of the things,
the budget is literally feeding people. I'm like, bye.
And one of the things I learned too was a well-fed crew is a happy crew.
Yes.
So if you're getting pizza every day, or like, oh, we'll just order this, like, no, trust me, spend the extra money. Your crew will be very happy, and they'll work very hard for you. Food is important.
The long sets that I worked on, like, they fed us really well, so I'm like, I can't really be mad, but I'm tired, but you know what? The food is so good. They'll have like a beignet truck for us, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, beignets and coffee, hell yeah, awesome. I'll work 14 hours.
Yeah, because then you're just, when there's a moment of a break, you're not like, oh, like pizza again. You're like, ooh, this is fun.
This is a new treat.
It's like, you got to kind of keep everyone on their feet in terms of what you're going to feed them. It's exciting.
Exactly. So how many years has it been now that you've had your production company? Like,
so almost 10 years.
Oh my God.
So 2014, wow. July 2014.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so we gotta throw a big party or something next summer.
How have you seen it evolve and like maybe like change in the last like 10 years?
I mean, a lot. I think the caliber of stuff that we're making, I think our marketing has improved a ton. I think one thing I learned as a producer is that, especially when raising money, like you got to ask everybody, and the worst they can say is no. I mean, I
live by that. Like, the worst that can happen is no.
Right. It's not like someone's going to say, never talk to me again, I hate
Literally,
you.
like,
and if they do, then you're like, all right, okay, I guess you don't like me.
You're like,
but for raising money, or, and it's important to just not be afraid to say, hey, we're making a thing. We need some money. Are you interested? And just go through your phone and call everybody. I mean,
What do you do? So after like you create your film, are you submitting them to film festivals as well, or like what is your method of getting your film out there? Because a lot of people, like, we don't necessarily always learn that, you know. It's like in film school even we learn how to make films, but it's like, what about after? Well, what about when the film's done? What do we do then?
Yeah, that's been an interesting journey for us.
Yeah.
I think early on, submitting to festivals, I picked, I did a web series. It was a comedy web series called The Show. Check it out, 6-part web series.
I love that you have different, you do so many different genres. It's not just like, thrillers or comedy. It's like, I feel like you tap into everything. Like, you've done plays, so I think it's really cool because it does shape you to be a better director, actor, everything, because you're dipping your feet into everything. You're like, oh, I have experience with this. It's not just like, oh, I only do this.
Thank you. Yeah.
Not putting you in a box, which I like.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think what's important for me is like following the fun, because if I'm not doing that, then I'm going to get in my head. I'm going to question what I'm doing.
Right.
And that's like where the biggest obstacles are. So if I'm following the thing that's inspiring me right now, and I make it, then I'm not hesitating. You know, I'm going to have thoughts and feelings and things, but
things come up.
Overall, I'm like, no, this is really fun, and I trust that more.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, are people going to like this? Because I'm like, no, I like this, and that's what's important. So and sometimes it switches. Sometimes I'm working on something that feels fun, and then I get another idea for something else, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put that down for a minute because this is feeling like work.
Right.
But let me go to that, and then I'll, it's like sometimes ping-ponging, which I don't always recommend, but finding the fun is important to get stuff made. But in terms of the festival question, I think my biggest piece of advice was like, be as specific as you can with submitting.
Yeah.
Because if you're just throwing your film around, you're going to spend a lot of money. You're probably going to get rejected.
It's not that cheap, right?
And that's the name of the game, is just not hearing back and spending a lot of money. But at least you're more tailored, you're more specific. So if I have a horror film, like focus on horror
film
festivals.
Right.
Yeah. And also watch some of the films that went to that festival that were successful and say, is mine similar to this?
Yeah.
Why or why not? And maybe it's a good fit, maybe not. And then the last thing I'll say is email like the reps, like go on LinkedIn, find out who works there, who's like in the programming department, and say, hey, I submitted my film, even if you don't know them, because they want that and they want to get to know people and upcoming filmmakers. So that's another aspect of producing where you don't want to be shy. You're marketing your film to these festivals so they can sell tickets.
Is there another way to market your film besides film festivals, or is that like a good way to go about it when you're more, a little bit more independent, or like not working for a major studio?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we, like me and my brother and No Tomorrow, we've had like a weird relationship with film festivals where sometimes we don't get in and we're not sure why, but we really like the film and people are giving us like good responses.
Yeah, it happens.
So we just end up releasing it online or doing a little watch party with friends and just spreading it through word of mouth, because ultimately, even a film festival, people will see it. I mean, I've seen short films at film festivals, and I don't remember them after. I'm like, oh, that was really good.
Yeah,
and
in the moment.
Some I remember, but I think what's important is, you made something, share it with the people you love. Hopefully they'll spread it around. Tell everyone about it also. But I think also it's like then when you start making the next one, you can say, hey, I made this thing. Come check it out. Here's my, resume, my portfolio. So,
do you have a director's reel? And if you do, like, how are you judging, like, okay, I should have a director's reel versus like an actor's reel, or do you have both, or do you have like all of the above? Because you wear so many hats. So it's like, what are you showing people when you're like, hey, like, I'm Montgomery, this is what I can do?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I have my website, which has some of the films you can get like through there on YouTube.
Yeah.
For directing, I've kind of just been like, here are the films, and they kind of speak for themselves.
Okay.
But because I've been shooting more ads, actually, I've been thinking I need to do like a commercial director reel.
Very cool.
So that is interesting that you bring that up, because it's been in my head for like a little while.
Oh, shit.
Okay, I got to get that together, send it to Priscilla.
Yeah,
but,
right. No, I mean, it's a good way to get your name out there.
Yeah, but in terms of acting reel, like must have an acting reel, because people want to see what you can do. And again, I think if you only have one film and you're not able to make a directing reel, then the film speaks for itself. Right. You made the thing.
I was gonna say, like, how many like films or like how many projects do you have to have under your reel to make a reel, you know? Because I that was something I always doubted. I'm like, I feel like I don't have that many projects to like make a reel, so I just kind of send out my film. But I do get that sometimes people don't have time to watch a full like 20-minute hour film, so it's like, you know, your reel does summarize it all in what, like 3 minutes. So
yeah,
I guess, is there like a limit of like, oh, you need this amount to like make a reel, or is it kind of just your preference?
I think it's just your preference.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you, because also you can show screenshots to people.
Stills
like I have those. Yeah, I have
Yeah.
those on my website, and I think some people will watch them and tell
Yeah.
you, and some people will watch the first 5 minutes and say
Right.
it was good. I think directing reel is kind of a weird thing because you're seeing the visuals that like you and a cinematographer put together,
Right.
and then you're seeing the actors act in words that maybe you wrote, but they're saying,
Yeah.
and maybe someone
It is
else
weird.
wrote them.
It
So
is
you're like,
weird.
what is a directing reel? It's like the vision,
Right.
But I think if you do have that eye for like cinematography, like grab your phone and get some cool shots and
Yes.
somebody walking through and do some cool lighting with a friend or who's an actor or your partner or whoever. And those you can kind of show that I can be a visual storyteller. I think in terms of directing reel, it's not totally necessary, especially if you're making stuff.
Okay.
But if you want to get something together, like shoot some cool visuals, get
Yeah.
some cool looks, like
Yeah.
emulate filmmakers that you like, or you're like, I really like the shot. Can I go shoot it
Can I make it similar?
in my street? You know,
Right.
So
I like that. That's
you
a
can do
great-
stuff like that.
That's great advice. When you said earlier, like you watched your feature film back and then you realized like it's better as a short film. I feel like that takes like it's not easy to be able like to watch something and be like, this did not turn out the way that I envisioned it. This is maybe not the best. Like I should cut this out because we want to hold on to everything. Like you're like, oh, like this is how I wrote it. Like we should keep. So how were you able to really sit down and be like, no, this is not good. I need to cut it out.
Yeah, I mean that was difficult. I think it was definitely a tonal thing because it was like a rom-com all the way through, and then there's like a big twist at the end, and everyone was kind of like, "This doesn't really make sense." And I think, and it's funny because I think in retrospect, I should have just trusted it. It ended up being like 55 minutes.
Okay.
But I should have just said like, "This is it." Whether
Yeah.
but what I did was I backed up and I said, "Oh no, wait, it's not perfect." But it's never gonna be perfect.
It's never going to be perfect. People are
Yeah.
always going to have something to say too. They're like, oh, that was cool, but you could have done this. Or honestly, even when I watch back old projects that I did, I'm like, I could have done that. But
Right.
like, it is what it is. Like that's what you put out there, and like this was your vision initially, and like not everyone's always gonna like everything that you put out there. But I mean, I also get like taking feedback. Like obviously, if it's like, oh, the dialogue is trash, it's so on the nose. Like we're gonna fix that. But
Right. Well, it's funny too because once I finally released it, everyone was like, "Oh, it's actually pretty good."
Oh, okay.
And I was like, "I'm just being so hard on myself
Yes.
about something that was like my first go." We raised the money. We shot the thing in like 8 days.
Nice.
It was like a very small crew, a lot of
Yeah.
friends. It was like a really cool experience.
Yeah.
And I just put so much pressure on myself. So I think just trust yourself. Like
Yeah.
go after what you want to do. Make it, and get feedback, but also know like, okay, this isn't perfect,
Right.
but this is what I wanted to make, and I
Right.
can learn from it. Because if you are a filmmaker that wants to keep going, every filmmaker looks back on their stuff and says, "Oh, I could have changed this, or I could have done
Literally.
that, or I
I'm
should have
like,
done this." So, and that was my first real film, and I was going after a feature, and it was like 9 years ago. So it's like
Nice.
the amount of stuff we learned. We shot
Yeah.
a feature in 2019. Like we learned so much from everything in
I
between.
was gonna say, what's the difference now that you have more experience? Like, what are some major differences that you faced or dealt with? Like, you also shot during COVID too, so that must have been kind of a
Yeah, we shot right
roadblock.
before COVID. Actually.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah,
you missed
yeah,
the okay.
yeah.
So yeah, what was your experience like?
So it was awesome. I
Okay,
mean,
that's amazing. Love that.
we tackled a Goliath.
Tell us about the story. Like, what is it about?
Oh,
like,
okay,
what were
yeah.
maybe
So it's Exposure
highs and lows?
36.
Okay.
It's about a photographer
Okay.
who becomes a drug dealer to make
Yeah.
ends meet, and his friend goes missing, and he's got to figure out what happened to his friend before the clock hits zero, because there is a world catastrophic event that is going on, kind of like a Mayan calendar where
Cool.
on this day the world's
the
gonna
world
end.
ends. Yeah. Oh,
And-
that shit scared me. Like 2012, I was like, is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen?
Well, what we love about the film is that there's this feeling of some people believe it's going to happen and some people don't. But because there's all these natural disasters and things
Right. It's
happening
like real life.
in the world of the
Yeah.
film, some people are like, oh, the world's ending, and other
Right.
people are like, no, it's
No,
not
it's
ending.
bullshit. Right.
So it's this cool, interesting thing that we
I
played
like
around
that. And
with.
where can we find the film?
It's on Amazon and
Cool.
Apple TV. It's also on Tubi if you want to rather watch it that way with
Oh
ads.
my God, that is so exciting.
So definitely check it out. Exposure 36, and that was written and directed by my brother Mackenzie.
Oh my God, I love that it's a family production. That's so cool. Like,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, we have a cool like yin and yang where he, he might tell you something different, but he
get him on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. He's like very technical. He's very like behind the camera cinematographer, and I'm the actor who's now behind the camera.
Yeah.
So we just have this very cool like technical versus maybe we'll watch the actor doing their thing and we'll kind of look at each other and then I'll be able to express what he's thinking in a way that an actor can absorb it. That's not just like, can you like be happier, because that doesn't work. So
And how do you stop yourself from maybe like if you're directing someone, how do you stop yourself from maybe acting out what you want from them because you're also an actor, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like almost like not like you're trying to demonstrate it, but it might come off as like, do it this way.
Yeah, I always try and like give an analogy or do something for them to go after. Like you're trying to surprise this person or you're trying to scare them, but the objective, I guess.
Right.
But also I'll say like, you're reaching your hand in the cookie jar and they're slapping it, and that's not what's actually happening in the thing, but that to me gives them something to play with.
Right.
And it's not me being like, you're being sneaky.
Yeah.
It's me being like, take that little story I told you and put it towards what you're doing. And that, I think what I've learned from being on both sides is it's a collaboration.
100%.
So if I'm just saying how I want you to say it, then you as an actor, you're like, okay, well, this guy's just telling me everything. But if I can almost, I wouldn't say it's like manipulation, but you're kind of like, being like, here's the way that I want you to get to where I'm trying to get you,
Yeah.
But that's also casting is,
Huge.
95%
It really
of the
is.
performance. So
Yes.
if you cast the right people, then you don't really have to do that much with them. It's just kind of fine tuning things.
How important is the director-actor relationship in your opinion, since you've done both sides?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think as a director, you want to create a very comfortable environment for actors to like feel like they can, go all the way, whatever they need to do. Because obviously you're going to be vulnerable on camera.
Right.
I think it's, respecting everyone on set, but, the actors are the ones that when they come and they're ready to go and you've set up everything, it's like really just focusing on them.
Right.
And then I think as an actor, it's respecting the vision, understanding that it's not about you, know. So it's like, I'm the one.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm the one crying on camera, but we're all here together. And I think
it is a team effort.
Yeah. So I think it's just being flexible and working things out. I always say to directors too, if you notice an actor is doing something or they have an idea, and it might not be exactly your idea, let them try it, especially if you have time. Like, okay, we'll do one like that. If we only have 3 takes, I get it.
Right.
But it's like, let's do one like that, try it out, see if it works. Because you might be surprised as a director of like, oh, I didn't see it that way. That's really cool.
Right.
And then they've had their chance to, get out their creative juices. And then you can say, that was great. Can we try it this way? I just want to see what that brings.
Right.
And that's a way of being like, you did your thing. Now can we do mine? So I think it's like, that's where the collaboration and communication is really important.
100%. So 2019, I'm assuming you're still in New York, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And then you shoot the film, you finish it. Was it in post-production already before COVID hit, or was it were you dealing with post-production during COVID?
So we had to do pickup shots in December. So my brother's an editor also by trade.
Nice.
So save a lot of money there.
I love that. Yeah, that's huge. Oh, that's awesome.
But so we needed to get some pickup shots, and we did that. But then, of course, Jess and I drove across the country in January of 2020. So we were in LA for about a month, and then the world shut down. But we had the film, feeling good about it. We were going to start getting, I think we were actually talking to a composer, or my brother had someone in mind that he wanted to work with. And then everything kind of shut down. So we're very fortunate that the people that we worked with were like, we want to make this thing, even if you guys are still raising money. Because actually what happened was we raised enough for production.
Nice.
And then we said, if we have, stills to show and a trailer to show, then we can raise money on the back end, which like I wouldn't totally recommend because it's easier to just have all the money and go blow right through it. But
and things come up sometimes too where you're like, oh shit, this costs more than I thought.
Which we delayed our, post-production crowdfunder like, almost 9 months because of that. So because of the pandemic and everyone was scared and huddled in their house. So like, they don't want to give us money if we make
like,
our
we might all
film.
die.
But once the sun started shining again and people were kind of peeking out of their homes is when we felt like, okay, this could be a good opportunity. And also people saved a lot of money in the pandemic. Well, like those fortunate and who were able to. Yeah. Which are usually the people that you're asking for money. So it was an interesting time to be able to raise money. Yeah. But we were able to raise I think it was 90% of it of what we were asking for. Nice. But the composer, the colorist, special effects, they had all done it. We signed contracts, but they all did it like deferred payment. Right. So we had the film completed pretty much. Nice. And then we did the fundraiser and we raised it. So and then we paid everybody. But so it was cool to work with people who were just hungry to make stuff and really loved the film and just wanted to collaborate with us.
Wow, that's really awesome. So then when you're here, the pandemic hits, what is going through your mind? Are you like, did you regret moving here at all? Because you're like, oh my God, I just moved here and the pandemic hit and now everything's like on pause. Like literally nobody was leaving the house. Like you said, auditions started becoming online auditions. That's like a major transition. That's super like not normal for an actor. So what were you thinking?
Yeah, I think we were more freaked out like anybody else, of just like what's going on. And even, my family's in New York. So we had those conversations of like, should we just go back and live with my parents for a little bit just to like get our feet on the ground? Right. But because Brooklyn was in such a weird place.
Yeah, it was the cases were high in New York. I remember in the beginning, it was like, oh God, New York. Like, right. Yeah.
Well, it's like everyone's on top of each other. And it's like, where it's here, it's like, there's a lot of people, but you can walk on the other side of the street and stuff. In New York, it's like everyone's there. Yeah. So we said, no, let's stick it out. Like we live in Santa Monica, so we had the beach and we could walk around. So we felt very fortunate for that. But what was kind of cool is a friend of mine, Mike Paisano, he started an idea and got a bunch of writers together. This is like my first writer's room. Oh, cool. So we did and I think a lot of people did this, but it was a web series that we shot like through Zoom.
No, I didn't do that. That's pretty cool. Let's hear it. Yeah,
it's called.
Like a lot of people do something. Like, what?
Everyone did it.
Like everyone does this.
I think what was cool about it was it was an example of saying, okay, we have a lot of obstacles, but how can we make something? Yeah. And it was called Lockdown Living. Check it out. I think there's 8 episodes out.
I want to watch that.
We had a group of, I think it was 5 of us on the writing team, and so everyone wrote their own thing.
So are you guys meeting on like over Zoom and then it's like, okay, you bring 5 pages.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's the same story, or you're writing different things?
No, so we had come up with a bunch of different ideas, and then somebody said, I really want to write this one, I want to write that one. So it came like, okay, everyone next week or in 2 weeks come with a finished thing and we'll give notes. So that was
literally
really cool.
what I want. That's the perfect way to. Oh my God, that's so good, because I did that in film school, and like every week we had to write a new 10 pages, and like having someone like not kind of like on you, but like like you have deadlines. Like I need deadlines.
Yeah, I definitely recommend for anyone out there to start or get into a writer's group if you have 5 friends or 2 or 1. Just start doing that, because like you said, bring
counting all my friends.
Yeah, exactly. Just bring 10 pages and then everyone reads and just it's just encouraging. Right. But with Lockdown Living, we shot through Zoom, but what it really was because actors know how to self-tape. Right. We put the phones in front of their computers because the Zoom quality would differ between everyone's computers and web camera. Totally. So if everyone has like a iPhone 10 and above, we're pretty good. So
they shot Tangerine on an iPhone.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So we ended up doing it that way, and it worked out really well.
Wow.
Yeah.
What obstacles did you go through, like filming like that?
Yeah,
because that's not easy.
Well, producing was tough because we can't be there. It's very remote, which I learned a lot doing that, and has helped me out in jobs later.
Yeah.
But you end up, ordering everything on Amazon, sending it to the actor, working with them of like, if we had to set up a space like this, I'm on the computer being like, can you put the poster there and can you hang the pictures there and let's make the camera here.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to have that experience. And, all the actors were really great about, they had to be cinematographer, they had to be lighter, a gaffer, they had to do set deck and costume, and we worked together, but when push came to shove, it was like them
literally it's
doing it.
like you're really working together, you're playing all all the roles, which is amazing, and like it makes the project more fun to watch too. Like I'm actually really excited to see that. Where can we watch that?
So that's on YouTube, so it's Lockdown Living, just check it out.
Hell yeah.
It was really fun. There's a lot of good stuff on there. Really talented people. We had a really cool group making that.
Oh my God, how fun. And how did you find this group of people? Like, because you're new to LA, so how did you find a group so quickly? Like, did you put yourself out there by going to like networking events, but like it's also limited because of COVID, so like how were you meeting people?
Well, it's funny because I moved to LA, but then I was still like in New York for a year because I was Zooming with all my New York friends. So actually Mike, who started Lockdown Living, and the other writers were all in New York.
Got it. Okay.
So I was the only one in LA. And then same thing, we actually got a bunch of actors together, different friend of mine, James Rich, and we did a Facebook kind of script reading thing because we were like, actors want to read scripts and we should. And because watching a movie and reading the script's kind of a different thing.
Yes.
And we wanted to kind of, brush up and keep up on it. So we would just read like our favorite film scripts. And we started building a big group. And there's a Facebook group floating around that nobody uses anymore that we use that for. But I think we just called it like COVID script reading, I
love it. That's fun. So cool though.
Yeah. So it was like 2 hours on a Sunday and we all just got together and read it through Zoom.
I'm inspired. I'm like, I need to do that.
It was great. Because
I have writer's block. I deal with writer's block a lot, especially like now that I've been spending more time at home, and I'm like, I'll have like maybe like the first like 5 pages I'm like inspired, I'm like, yeah, like this is gonna be great, and then I'm like, I don't know, and then I just kind of like stop, and then I'm like, does that even make sense, is that even good, and I kind of start to doubt it, and then I like push it away, and then I just do something else, and then like maybe a couple of days later I'll go back and I'm like, oh my God, the dialogue was so on the nose, like and then I just like change everything around and stuff. So it's weird though, like how do you deal with writer's block when you have deadlines and like people counting on you?
I think that's a big aspect of finding the fun or following the fun.
Right.
And I think with Lockdown Living, it's like we were just having a blast. When I'm writing a feature film script of my own, I go through that too.
Right.
And
okay,
I go or I'll go and read back and be like, oh, this actually wasn't as bad as it's on the nose and whatever, but like, okay, this is actually like kind of interesting.
Right.
So I think it's just trusting yourself and knowing. And I had a great professor in college. Her pen name is Arlene Hutton. She said that you don't have to like your first draft, you just have to write it. Because writing is rewriting.
That's true.
And rewriting is really hard, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you learn so much by just getting through it.
Put the words on the page.
Even sometimes what I'll do, because I write a treatment first,
yes.
so I know from beginning to end what's going to happen. But I'll be, on page 30, and I'm like, I know I have to finish this scene, and I know, like, this has to happen, but I don't know how to get there yet. So I'll just write, like, in all caps, like, this happens, and then I'll go to the next scene because
this is happening.
I just got to get to the end.
Yes.
And then you go back and read it, and you go, oh, and you get inspired by your own stuff.
Okay, you know what? I've been doing that. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm not, like, completely off track.
You're on the right path.
Yeah, because I'll just sit there, I'm like, I'm just not in the mood to write this part yet, or like I'm like the dialogue, it's not coming to me yet. So I'm like, this when you come back, like just put this like as a placement block, like kind of like so you know, like okay, this needs to go here.
Yeah, so
that makes sense.
I've written films where I'm just like, I know what I want to happen, so let me just write all the way through.
Yeah,
and then I get stuck somewhere, just hit a roadblock.
Me,
but with the treatment, okay, the next scene is going to be back at his house doing this, so let me just jump to that. And keep going. And when you read it later, they'll say, oh, yeah, I totally didn't finish the scene, but you might know how to film it at that or finish it. And, they say get in late and leave early. So sometimes you might find, oh, this is actually a good place to just get out of the scene.
Yeah, that's actually very true. So I know you helped Jessica make the short film Be Good, which I have talked about on episode 97 as well. How was that? Because you guys created that during the lockdown as well, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
How long after moving here and all that did you guys decide to make that?
I think that was October of 2020,
Okay.
if I'm correct in that. If I'm not, sorry, Jess. But we rented a camera. We got some lights. You know, luckily there were a couple of rental houses that were still kind of open. You know, I think towards the end of 2020,
Things were
people started like dipping their toes in the water.
They're, like more open to going
yeah,
outside.
yeah. And I think it was one of those things where the guy, because it was out of a guy's house, and I think it was like Los Angeles camera rental.
Yeah.
You know, it was like really, the guy's really nice, and I wish I remembered his name, but great place. Googled it. I Googled like Los Angeles camera rental, and there was this place that came up, and it was a guy's house.
In an alleyway. Like,
it wasn't that creepy.
I was like, jeez.
But I pulled up to a street, and he said, just wait outside, and I'll let you know when to come in, because I saw people going in one at a time.
Oh, okay.
Because it was like, you know, COVID and stuff.
Right, that's
and
fair.
then, and it was funny because there were like a good amount of, you know, you can spot a film person.
Yes.
Like, you know, it's all black, a hat, and, you know, so I recognized, you know, all the film people
all the
renting
signs.
stuff.
The filmmaker.
But what was funny is because I have all this experience, we were able to film it.
Yeah.
Because Jess is amazing, but, you know, like because I've had experience doing sound and working with lights, which I didn't have that much experience, but I had a little bit, you know. So we were able to just kind of cobble stuff together. And
it turned out great, by the way. I watched
thanks.
it. The whole thing was really well done, and the ending, I was like, oh, chills.
And I mean, Jess is so talented. She wrote an amazing like short film, and she has a really good eye for directing. So collaborating was really cool, and she would have an idea, and then I would throw an idea, and we'd be like, ooh, let's put them together.
Yes.
So that was really cool to just
because
you
guys
play
are
around with that.
I mean, you guys are not only both actors, you guys are directing the story together too. So you know, how were you guys able to kind of work through that? Like, okay, now I'm putting my directing hat on, and now I'm going back to acting. Like, how were you guys able to do that?
Well, what was cool is that she was directing and acting, so we could really just that was her thing.
Focus.
But we obviously were choosing shots because it was just us two, so it's not like there was a whole crew and stuff.
Yeah.
But I would set lights, we'd look at it.
Right.
You know, we had a camera put on a tripod, and then you know we shot a lot of handheld. But I think we would really talk about like how is this shot pushing the story forward, because it is a short film.
Right.
You know, what can we do? So we, you know, Jess had the great idea of like shooting through the fishbowl.
Yeah.
You know, and even the shot of like, you know, tracking towards the bathroom mirror while she's, you know, doing sit-ups in the tub. It's like we had some cool ideas that we were able to be like, how is the camera telling this story?
Totally.
And that was something that we really wanted to push through. So I think it was just cool to collaborate with her.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
There was a lot of trust, I think was
I was
really
going to
what
say,
it was.
like, what is it like working with your partner, your significant other? What is that situation like? That is so cool. Like, not a lot of people can say that. I can't.
I mean, I think we were fortunate that we both have had a lot of experience, and we've been through the ups and downs of it. You know, we've been in a relationship for a long time and doing creative stuff together. So like there's been highs and lows for sure, like on the creative side. Yeah. But I think because we were both so excited about the piece, we were trusting each other. It was a really good collaboration. Like we were working together. I think that is why it came together so well. And now when we talk about the next stuff, we're like, that energy is where we want to be. So, you know, I mean, I'll say like when we were making the show, I was so like insecure about what I was doing that, you know, there was a lot of ups and downs, and I was stressed, and we were doing things and dealing with that because she was also in it. Right. So it's like, I didn't always, because I directed it and I wrote it and I was in it. Yeah. And that was a big learning lesson for me of like, I hadn't totally figured out the mental capacity of I'm an actor now, I'm a director now, I'm a producer now, I'm the writer now. Hats, So I think that was a really good learning experience for both of us to know like, okay, I shouldn't ask this question, or like maybe now's not the right time, or how do we like collaborate on this so we can help make the vision be the best. So I think that's something that, because you know, like working with the people that are closest to you, like I mean, even working with my brother, it's like it can be family charged, but it's always so rewarding. So if you can make it work, like I recommend it, because yeah.
And
the
if you,
reward
like,
is
let's say you guys
amazing.
didn't agree on something, like, how do you guys communicate through that? Like, you know, do you explain, like, hey, like, I see it this way, and, you know, maybe she sees it that way? Like, how would you guys compromise?
I think, I think it's ultimately on a set, she's the director. You know, when we were shooting that, it was her final decision.
Yeah.
So, I think she was understanding enough to ask that question, like, why do you think that? Like, what's the thought behind it? And it might be like, oh, I see what you're saying, but I want to do this visually. Yeah. Or, I mean, sometimes we're like, let's try it both ways. Like, it's just us.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not paying anybody.
That's fair. That's
fair. So we did some of that. But yeah, I think ultimately it's like, if you're on a set, like knowing, okay, they're in charge and I'm just here to help do their vision. And then also, if you are the director and people have ideas, like, welcome that, because you might learn, oh wow, that's actually a really cool idea that we should try out. So,
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself working on more future projects together, like short films, like feature films? Like, how far do you guys want to take it together?
Yeah, for sure. I think we are talking about short films all the time because that feels the most like immediate.
Right.
But, you know, she was in Exposure 36. She's been in pretty much everything.
What's your role in Exposure 36?
It's funny because she has like a really small part, but she gets like mugged in the beginning.
Nice. You're like, you're going to get robbed.
She gets held at like knife point.
Oh my God. Poor thing.
But yeah, I mean, Jess has been in literally everything we've done pretty much.
Yeah.
So, you know, she played.
I would too.
She played Death in Red Mosquito. She played the stage manager in the show. You know, so it's like she literally has been there since the beginning, and it's just been a learning experience for both of us. So yes, moving forward, we want to keep working together.
Love that.
And we both keep like, you know, improving in different parts that it's like, oh, that's going to be great when we're working together again on this next one, you know?
Exactly. What are you working on anything now, or are you taking a little break from the last project?
Well, Lockdown Living was 2020.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you talking about with Jess or just in
By
general?
yourself? Yeah. Or in general, I guess.
So we got distribution 2021, 2022.
And I'm like, what year is it?
For Exposure 36.
Okay.
So it came out May of 2022.
Got it.
So my brother and I had a couple scripts that we were like, okay, when this is done, let's start on the next one.
Right.
So we're working on the next script. And getting the pitch deck together, and we're going to start raising money. And then I'm also writing a feature film that I've been very excited about.
How do you balance the time for writing, producing, and acting? Because you did say, like, acting is still your main thing that you want to pursue, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know.
I was like, can you tell me? Because I'm trying to do a lot of stuff here too, but I'm like, there's not enough hours in the day.
Well, what's funny is because acting is so immediate. They're like, hey, here's a self-tape. You got to do it by Tuesday. And you're like, okay, so I have to prioritize this because I have to get it done in time.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I can't say that I write every day.
Okay.
But I, you know, try to write as much as I can. And it's like months will go by where I haven't written a lot. And then months will go by where I'm like cranking it out and I finish the script. So I try my best to not, you know, beat myself up or have any kind of like, okay, I'm just here today. Let's let's follow the fun.
I showed up today.
Yeah, exactly. And like even today I sat down and I wrote like a couple lines in my script and I was like, okay, that's like, I don't have any more time, but I'm glad I did that. And I got to read through it again. So, I mean, balancing it out is just one thing at a time on the to-do list.
No,
you know?
that's huge. I think like because it's not that easy to necessarily balance, and I feel like you have to see what's important at the time for you, and like what's making, like you said, like what's making you happy, like what are you enjoying, and you know it's different like every few months. You know, maybe, you know, acting was what it was like a couple months ago, but now like producing, because you have to like come up with the script and find the budget and the all this and get the people together. So that's.
I mean, I think it's like knowing when to put each hat on too.
Exactly.
You know, okay, I'm going to be a writer today. I'm going to be a producer tomorrow, and even just sections of life. Like for the next 3 months, I have to produce this thing.
Yeah.
And then when I'm on set, I'm the director, and then when I'm in front of camera, I'm the actor. You know, so it's just that, and that's what took me a long time to learn was when I have to take off one hat and the other, because I remember actually I was on a short film that I was just acting in. I didn't even produce it. Just a friend of mine said, do you want to be in this thing?
Yeah.
And they were trying to figure out where to put a light, and I'm standing there like drinking my water, and I'm like,
trying to,
it might help if you guys put it over there. And literally all of them turned around at me, is like, why is this actor telling us where to move the light? And I was like, never mind. Like, and now it's just me being like, on my set, maybe I'd be able to say that, but also just noticing like, okay, yeah, I'm just the actor today, and yeah, so that was a learning lesson.
That's what it is. It's a bunch of learning lessons, right? We just figure it out as we go. I was gonna say, do you think it's helpful, or not necessarily, like, I don't know if helpful is the right word, but like, do you think it's tricky to be the director and actor on your own set? Like, is it easier to have like a co-director when you're directing and acting, or how, like, what's the best way to go about that?
Yeah, I mean, the times that I have done both, I usually have a producer who is a director, who's my friend, who knows the vision,
story inside and out,
or like a DP who might be a director also.
Yeah.
Just so that you can, get somebody else's perspective of like, maybe try this,
Right.
Because as actors, we can get in our heads. But what I also do is, knowing I'm going to act in it, I do all the work way before. So when I go on set, I can just like kind of flip a switch. I'm like, I know this character. I've practiced. I've rehearsed it. I've lived in this person's skin.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, let me discover something here.
Right.
Because I think, some people get hired a couple days before the shoot. So those actors are still kind of figuring out their thing. But if you know you're going to act in it and direct it, you better be so prepared that that if somebody does, throw something at you, you can do it because you're so in it, and you're like, I can do this as this character. So, and that's 100%. What we did with Exposure 36. I just had put in so much work ahead of time that, because I shot like I was holding the camera for a good amount of it. Yeah. So then and that was kind of weird too, just sitting on the couch and watching everyone move stuff around me, and I'd be like, can I help? And they'd be like, no, sit, you're the actor today. And I was like, all right, cool. So that was interesting just to know, okay, this is like, and they were all very cool about it, of being like, no, you're the actor today, like that's your job. So I was really grateful for that.
That's really cool. I keep hearing you say, like, I'm getting crowdfunding and like some money invested. Like, what's the not easy way, but like, what's the best way to go about getting crowdfunding? Because it's not that easy. I've tried it before, and like, I got maybe like half the budget. Yeah. So is there like any tips you could give for people that, are trying to get some funding? Because it's expensive to make a movie, and like when you're a director, we do have to fund our own stuff, unless like you're already known and like a studio's paying for it, like you are investing in yourself. So it's a little scary.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think there's grants like that you can go towards. There's like, screenwriting contests, things like that. Yeah. That's a good place to start. And you also got feedback on your script. So that's a good place to start. Now for crowdfunding, I think it's like, you're creating a pitch deck that people are going to read online, like on a Kickstarter or Seed and Spark. And Seed and Spark was like super helpful because it's focused to filmmaking. Okay. So there's a lot of resources there, and that's what we used for the post for feature film. Got it. For Exposure 36. But yeah, I mean, I think it actually helps you because you're essentially creating a pitch for the film. Right. And there's a lot of resources out there, but I would say it's just, be as honest as possible. Try and ask everybody. I mean, it's like we said earlier, the worst they can say is no. Yeah. So, and you email it to everybody, you text all your friends, you remind them. Because also one thing that we learned is that there would be people that were like, oh, they're going to give us a good amount of money because of XYZ, whatever our assumption was. Right. And then somebody would come out of the woodwork and actually like give us more money than we expected. And it's just like, you think, oh, this person's going to give a lot of money and I don't expect these people to do it. And then it's like, and then suddenly it switches. And you get constantly surprised. So that's why I think it's like, you got to ask everybody and just see what happens,
Was there ever a situation where you didn't raise enough money, where it put your film on pause, or where you had to rethink getting the budget?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't say that's happened that would almost like paralyze the film. Yeah. But then it just becomes okay, how can we save money here and there? Or, I think for most crowdfunding, you have to get like at least 80% or something like that to actually get the money. Yes, thank you. Indiegogo, you can collect whatever you raise.
There one more?
Well, there's Kickstarter, Seed and Spark, Indiegogo. But at least those are the big ones that I know of. But yeah, so you kind of have to get 80%. So you really got to set that as the goal.
Right.
Obviously, you're trying to raise 10 grand,
Right.
but as long as you get 8, you're good. And then it's really just recognizing kind of trends, because what happens is, and they tell you all of these things, but in the first like week, if you kind of want to raise like almost 50% of it, because then people, it's like a if you build it, they will come. If people are following, others will go.
Yeah.
So if you're showing people, hey, I'm on 2 days left and we're really close to the money, then people are like, oh, let me just give them $20 because they're so close. So it's kind of just that momentum of getting a lot in early. 2 little tricks that we did, actually.
I love tricks. Let us know.
Was we got some money beforehand.
Okay.
So we knew, let's say we had $1,000.
Okay.
So if we got to 7 and we were a couple days out, we could put in 500.
Oh,
so
smart.
people are seeing that money's being pumped in.
It's like, oh, if you see other people putting money, you're like, okay.
Right,
do
exactly.
it.
Or like, oh, they're so close. Let me help them out.
Right.
So that is a good thing. And then the other thing was, if you know somebody wants to put in money, be like, can you hold off or get everyone to dump in right away? So it's like just playing your strategy out, because you can almost start asking, the heavy hitters, if you will, if they're willing to donate and what they're willing to do, so that you kind of know, okay, at least we know we have $1,000, so we can play around with that. We can either throw it in immediately or hold it off just to help us
Those are great
keep
tips.
the momentum.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
I
of course.
appreciate that. I'm like, now I know what to do too.
Yeah.
I'm like, not just the people listening, me too. I'm like,
You got to do like a private while you're also doing a crowdfunder.
Exactly.
So it's good. Yeah.
Well, my last question would be, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Wow, 10 years.
Yeah. A lot
Hopefully
can happen, right?
on stage at the Oscars.
Hell yeah, I love that. Dream big. Hell yeah, shoot for the stars.
I mean, I want to be making films. I want to be acting, producing, directing. I think I'd love for No Tomorrow to be a household name. We are making films. You guys are reading about us on Deadline.
Hell yeah. Congratulations. That's huge. That's such a accomplishment. That must feel so great.
No, it's cool to see people writing about the film. And actually, Exposure 36, shout out to Video Librarian, we got in a list of like the best narrative films of 2022 that they reviewed. So I think for 10 years, it's like just doing this on a higher level, and really just starting to create a name for ourselves and see that blossom,
which you're already doing. So it's definitely possible. It's definitely going to happen.
Thank you.
So I'm very excited to see all that.
Thanks so
it's
much.
going to be great. I'm going to watch all your movies because I'm like, oh my God, they all sound super exciting and totally up my alley. So I'm definitely excited to watch them. Would you like to throw out any Instagram handles where people can follow your films and your website and all that, or even if they need someone like an editor or producer?
For sure.
Never know.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, go to my website, montgomerymorrow.com, Instagram at montgomerymorrow. DM me, contact me. I'm always trying to help people because I try and pay it forward. That's how I got started, and I like recommending my friends. Follow No Tomorrow, N-O, the number 2, M-A-U-R-O, and also notomorrow.com, and YouTube, Vimeo.
Hell yeah,
check
you're
out
everywhere.
The feature film. Check it out.
Really good branding on your name. I really like that.
Thanks.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.